Hey there, and welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into a genuinely wild story today. When you hear Purdue University, what comes to mind? Maybe a massive engineering school out in Indiana, or maybe you've caught their sports teams on TV. But we're going to unpack its totally unexpected evolution. We're talking about a gritty 1860s agricultural college that somehow transformed into a global hard-tech and spacefaring juggernaut. Now, I gotta say, looking at how they scaled this kind of excellence over a century and a half is just fascinating. So let's get right into how they actually pulled it off.
To keep us on track, let's take a quick look at our roadmap. We'll hit 1. A land-grant legacy. 2. From popcorn to wikis. 3. The cradle of astronauts. 4. Building a hard-tech future. And 5. Excellence at scale. I promise you, by the time we wrap up, you are going to see exactly how chicken nuggets, lunar landings, and the global semiconductor supply chain all fit into one cohesive story.
All right, Section 1, a land-grant legacy. Let's start right at the gritty, practical foundations to see where this all began.
Okay, so picture this. Things moved incredibly fast back then. In 1862, the U.S. government signed the Morrill Land Grant Act. Basically, this provided land to establish colleges that focused specifically on agriculture and the mechanic arts. Now, Indiana definitely wanted in, but they honestly didn't know where to put the school. That is, until 1869, when a Lafayette businessman named John Purdue stepped up to the plate. He donated $150,000 and 100 acres of land. Fast forward just 5 years to 1874, and the university officially opens its doors to a really modest first class of just 39 students and 6 instructors.
What's so fascinating here is the context. Think about higher education back in the 19th century. It was mostly about classical liberal arts, right? Greek, Latin, philosophy. But Purdue, they were doing something totally different. They were earthy, hands-on, and highly practical. By the late 1800s, they had these massive, state-of-the-art locomotive testing plants and coreless steam engines. And that famous Boilermaker identity, it literally started as a nod to this heavy, industrial, mechanical engineering excellence. It perfectly captured their vibe and evolved into this enduring cultural identity we know today.
Moving on to Section 2. From popcorn to wikis, we are going to pivot from 19th century steam engines to these surprising everyday ways Purdue alumni have literally shaped our consumer lives.
I'm not going to lie, this part completely blew my mind. Purdue grads have practically masterminded the science of our daily routines. Take Robert C. Baker. He got his PhD from Purdue and was the guy who figured out the exact method to keep breading attached to chicken while it fries. Yep, he literally gave the world the chicken nugget. Then you've got Ruth Seams, a 1953 grad. She invented stovetop stuffing by patenting the exact breadcrumb dimensions needed for really quick rehydration. Wild, right? And on the tech side, Ward Cunningham created the first wiki software back in 1994. He built this super simple online database that basically laid the groundwork for Wikipedia. Oh, and Frank Thomas Jr., a mechanical engineering grad, he created the very first patented soft-serve ice cream machine.
Now, you absolutely cannot talk about everyday consumer goods without mentioning Orville Redenbacher. Yes, that Orville Redenbacher. He was actually a 1928 Purdue agriculture grad, heavily involved in 4-H and even the campus newspaper. He took those earthly agricultural roots, combined them with some incredibly innovative hybrid seed corn research, and by 1970, he had built a global gourmet popcorn empire. It's a perfect example of taking hands-on science and scaling it up.
All right, Section 3, the cradle of astronauts. So how on earth do we get from popcorn and chicken nuggets to the vastness of the cosmos? Let's take a look at their towering legacy in aerospace. One giant leap after another. That phrase just perfectly captures the Purdue trajectory. See, that same hands-on mechanical excellence that had them testing massive steam locomotives, it naturally scaled up over the decades. They went from testing steam to testing rockets and complex propulsion systems, pointing the university directly toward the interplanetary frontier. 27. I want you to just let that number sink in for a second. 27 Purdue graduates have been selected for space travel. To put that into perspective, alumni have flown on more than a third of all human U.S. space flights and more than 40 space shuttle flights. There is a very real reason this place is literally known as the cradle of astronauts.
And just look at the historical bookends of this lunar legacy. You have Neil Armstrong, class of 55, the first human to ever walk on the moon, and then you have Eugene Cernan, class of 56, the last human to walk on the moon. And of course, preceding them both was Gus Grissom, one of the original Mercury 7 pioneers. But here's the thing, it's not just history. Today, Purdue researchers like Kathleen Howell are the actual architects of the interplanetary superhighway. They are using incredibly complex orbital mechanics to allow spacecraft to navigate the solar system using minimal fuel. They are keeping the university at the absolute cutting edge of space exploration right now.
Section 4. Building a hard-tech future. Landing back down on Earth for a minute, let's explore how Purdue's modern era is aggressively taking on some massive 21st century global challenges.
They are definitely not resting on their laurels here. Through this massive, modern initiative called Purdue Computes, they are actively working to secure a global semiconductor supply chain. They've even launched a semiconductor academy in partnership with NYCU over in Taiwan. Plus, they are investing heavily in physical AI to bridge the virtual and physical worlds, advancing some truly transformative quantum technologies, and aggressively expanding their computer science department with their sights set dead on a top 10 national ranking.
And you can actually see this ambition playing out in their physical footprint. Beyond their traditional flagship campus in West Lafayette, which, by the way, is home to 57,000 students and some of the most advanced doctoral research out there, they've launched a brand new urban expansion in Indianapolis. This is explicitly designed to anchor a hard-tech corridor. We're talking about a $187 million academic success building that literally integrates makerspaces directly with student housing. It's all about getting students totally career-ready through industry co-ops right in the heart of the city.
Add to all of that, the One Health Initiative. Purdue recently secured a $250 million partnership with Eli Lilly. Now, context matters here. This is the largest university industry research partnership in the entire history of American higher education. It is specifically designed to advance drug discovery and pharmaceutical manufacturing. That means the critical medications and therapies of tomorrow could very well be originating right out of this exact partnership.
And finally, Section 5, Excellence at Scale. For our last section, let's look at the actual business of the university itself, because they've pulled off an institutional miracle that completely defies modern higher education trends.
14. Remember that number, because for 14 consecutive years, Purdue has frozen base tuition for in-state undergraduates at just under $10,000. Think about that for a second. In an era where college costs are just skyrocketing year after year across the country, Purdue has somehow managed to completely halt inflation for its students. It makes them an absolute outlier in American higher education today.
Now, what happens when you combine top-tier global rankings in engineering and agriculture with totally frozen, affordable tuition? Well, demand naturally skyrockets. And the spike is massive. We're talking a jump from nearly 73,000 applications in fall 2023 to almost 87,000 applications for the fall 2025 cohort. The numbers basically speak for themselves.
You might be thinking, well, affordability probably means they're sacrificing rigor, right? Actually, scratch that. It is the exact opposite. Because of all that massive demand, Purdue hit a 43.4% admit rate in 2025. That is the most selective rate in the institution's entire history, and if you are looking at their high-demand programs, it's incredibly tight. Engineering has an admit rate under 35%, and their professional flight technology program, a staggering 7.7%. So, yeah, way more affordable, but also way more competitive.
And that brings us right up to the present moment. The university is actually in a pretty critical transition right now. President Meng Chiang recently departed for Northwestern, and President Emeritus Mitch Daniels has returned to step in as interim. And in true hard-tech Purdue fashion, the Board of Trustees is literally using artificial intelligence right now to analyze massive amounts of public survey feedback. They are trying to figure out exactly what the institution needs in its 14th president. So I want to leave you with this. We've seen how Purdue went from testing 19th century steam engines to putting the first and last humans on the moon to engineering the future of semiconductors today. As artificial intelligence fundamentally reshapes our economy, how must this new president adapt a 150-year-old Boilermaker legacy? How do they ensure that traditional universities continue to evolve from the soil to the stars? It is a massive, incredibly exciting challenge, and honestly, I can't wait to see what they do next. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on today's Explainer, and keep learning.